Hey guys, it's Madison Estes. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be going over my most anticipated horror films for 2025. Starting off this list is the horror film Companion. There's not a lot that's known about this film so far, but the trailer did such a good job piquing my curiosity. One of the characters is Sophie Thatcher, who was in the movie Heretic, which I really loved last year. And in the trailer, she's sitting at a dinner table with this looming her male companion, and her arm is sticking out and it is on fire, and there's like a tear streaming down her cheek. It's so brilliant. It's very ominous and mysterious, and it makes you wonder what is going on in the scene. They released a teaser clip where like she's talking with the male companion and he's telling her, you know, don't be nervous, you're gonna do great. And that's it. So just more and more mystery, no plot details at all. I love it. I love going in horror films, if not completely blind, at least semi-blind sometimes. And this one, they're really not giving us anything except mystery. Companion comes out January 31st, and I'm definitely going to be seeing that one. Next up is Hard Eyes, coming out February 7th. The plot synopsis says, for several years, the Hard Eyes killer has wreaked havoc by murdering romantic couples on Valentine's Day. I'm a big fan of seasonal slasher films whenever they're done well, and I'm really excited for this one. I love the idea of a serial killer that goes around murdering romantic couples. I kind of feel like romantic relationships might be one of the horror trends that we see this year. It looks like it's going to be fun. Kind of in the same way that Scream is. I definitely got that vibe from the trailer, so really looking forward to this one. Coming out on February 21st is The Monkey, an adaptation of the Stephen King short story by the same name. The synopsis reads, twin brothers who discover their father's old monkey toy must destroy it after a series of gruesome deaths. This looks like it's going to be your standard cursed object story, but I'm excited for it because I really like those types of stories. Even whenever they're a little campy, I still think that they're a really good time. The next horror film I'm really excited about this year is Until Dawn, which comes out April 25th. Synopsis reads, a group spends the weekend at a ski lodge on the anniversary of their friend's disappearance, unaware that they are not alone. So I'm excited for this one because it sounds like it might have elements of a locked room mystery in addition to being a horror film, which is one of my favorite subgenres of horror. I really love it whenever you have like the cast of suspects and everybody starts turning on each other. And I'm assuming since they're at a ski lodge that the weather's probably going to play some element and that they're not going to be able to leave their surroundings because they're going to get snowed in or something. I've also heard that it's based off of a video game, but that it's not going to be following the same plot. It's like going to be the essence of the film, the same way that Resident Evil was kind of like the essence of the Resident Evil series, even though it didn't have any of the characters. I just hope that it's a good film, and I hope that if it is a good film, that fans of the video game won't hold it against the film for not, you know, being like a pure adaptation. But I've also never played the game before, so I don't know if it's something like Among Us where like every time it's different, or maybe the characters aren't that well developed to begin with, so it doesn't matter. I might play the game afterwards, but I don't want to like spoil if there's any twists they decide to reuse. I don't want to spoil that for myself. So I'm really looking forward to this locked room mystery / horror film. Next up is 28 Years Later, coming out June 20th, not June 28th, which is what I wanted to say like 3 times while filming this. This is a sequel in the 28 Days Later series. It is about a zombie / rage virus that goes around, and, you know, it's an apocalyptic film basically. And I loved the first 2 in the series, especially the first one. I think it has one of the greatest opening scenes and some of the best visuals of any apocalyptic horror film of like ever. So I'm looking forward to seeing what they do with this. Cillian Murphy will be returning and Ralph Fiennes is going to be in it, so I think that the cast is really promising. Also, the fact that it's a summer release makes me think that they're going to go really big on the special effects and the set pieces. So I'm really looking forward to this. I think it's going to be a really fun summer horror film. Coming out August 29th is Thread: An Insidious Tale. In this film, a couple resorts to a spell to travel back in time to try to prevent their daughter's tragic death. If that synopsis sounds familiar to you, it might be because this was supposed to come out last year. It was on my most anticipated list last year, so hopefully it will be worth the wait. Mandy Moore will be starring in this film, and the writer/director is Jeremy Slater, who is involved in The Umbrella Academy and The Exorcist television show, and this is going to be his first time directing a film, so that'll be interesting. He's written several films before, including the film Pet, which I absolutely love. It's one of my favorite underrated hidden gem horror films. So hopefully, now that he's getting a big budget to direct and write this film, hopefully it'll be really good. Next up on my list is The Conjuring Last Rites, which is set to come out September 5th. I really love the series. That's the only reason I'm really looking forward to this one. I have no idea if Last Rites means it's really going to be the last film. I mean, we all know that, Saw the Last Chapter was not the last chapter. There's so many horror films out there that are like, the last chapter, the last whatever, and it's never the last. So maybe it'll be the last. It'll probably be the last, at least with these characters, for a while. For those of you unfamiliar with the series, it's about two paranormal researchers. One of them has the gift of being able to communicate with spirits and see spirits, and she and her husband go around basically trying to help people that are dealing with difficult ghosts. Are there ever not difficult ghosts in horror movies? I feel like most of them are on the difficult side. Details are still under wraps at this time, but really looking forward to this one. Hoping that it's a good, I wouldn't say final send-off, but at least a good break in the series. Guys, I'm so cynical. I just don't believe that horror series ever truly end. And speaking of a horror series that never seems to die, Saw 11 is set to come out September 26th. There are no plot details known at this time, but Tobin Bell, Shawnee Smith, and Costas Mandylor are all set to be in this film, and Kevin Gruder will be directing. I have heard rumors that the release might get delayed yet again because of some issues with contracts and pre-production bureaucracy. I don't know how true those rumors are, but I'm holding out hope that it does get released this year. This next film is the last horror film I'm going to be talking about that has a release date that is already set. And that is The Black Phone 2, set to come out October 17th. Now, some of you might be thinking the same thing that I'm thinking when I first heard this film was coming out. Really, not everything needs a sequel. I know, that was my first thought. And I also remember thinking, because I couldn't remember the ending, and I still cannot quite remember the ending. I thought the grabber died, but now I'm second guessing myself, and I'm like, but did he? Or did they do the cop-out where, like, you think he's dead, but then he's actually alive and he disappears? I can't remember. And I'm like, if he did die, then I'm like, where would the story go? It's not a prequel. It's not like a spin-off. It's going to have the exact same cast from the first film, and it takes place after the events of The Black Phone 1. I honestly cannot remember if the grabber lives or dies, but I started thinking about it. I'm like, I think he died. If he did, that's going to be a lot more interesting, because if he dies, then I'm thinking, like, they're probably going to have scenes where, the grabber calls him, and maybe he's, like, threatening him, or maybe, like, Finney has the worst luck in the world and gets kidnapped again, and he has to, like, the grabber's calling him and, like, maybe giving him advice on how to live, but then every now and then he'll give him advice which, like, is really dangerous and leads to him almost dying or getting caught. I don't know. I think it'd be weird if he got kidnapped again, but maybe some other scenario. Maybe there's like a serial killer at the school. Maybe this is like, Derry or Castle Rock, where just bad shit's happening all the time in this town. But they could also retcon the ending. So like if the grabber died at the end of the first one, they could be like, oh, he's actually in a coma, he's still alive. And then if the grabber lived, and they could be like, oh, he died at the very beginning of the film, just, to make it more interesting, whatever they decide to do. I guess if the grabber lives, the storyline would probably be a lot more straightforward, just Finney being stalked by the grabber. So I'm kind of hoping the grabber is dead in the second one, and that, they utilize that device of the grabber calling him on the phone and kind of haunting him in that way, but maybe giving him some useful information. I think that could be really fun, since, the first film, if you don't know, is about a boy that gets kidnapped, and he's in a basement, and all of the grabber's previous victims call him and try to give him advice on how to live, which, as I said in my review on the film, maybe they're not, like, the most qualified to be giving advice on how to survive a killer, since none of them survived, but, they're trying. I was wrong. There is one more horror film I'm going to be talking about that has a release date set, and that is Predator: Badlands, which is set to come out November 7th. In the future, a predator transverses on an alien landscape, and two sisters discover their horrifying past. So a lot of mystery there. This clearly doesn't connect to the last film in the series, Prey, we're now on an alien planet instead of Earth, and we have these two sisters that have this subplot with their past. So it'll be interesting to see how the sisters' storyline connects to the Predator storyline. And I wonder, since it's an alien planet, if the sisters are human. Maybe this is like they've colonized the planet. But for those of you that aren't super familiar with the series, basically the Yautja species are predators, and they like to hunt different species, often humans, because we're considered like super intelligent, so we're considered worthy prey. They hunt for sport. Their goal is to kill humans or xenomorphs or any kind of alien species. And, the more deadly, the better, the more prideful, they get to be for killing. So it'll be interesting to see if the sisters are human. They look human based on the shots I've seen, so I'm guessing this is going to be like, in the future, we've colonized other planets kind of scenario. So now on to the 2025 most anticipated horror films that do not have release dates yet, starting with Fear Street Prom Queen. I am so excited for this film. I loved the Fear Street books when I was growing up. I loved the Netflix trilogy that came out a few years ago and how all of the films interconnected, but I also really enjoyed them as individual films. So I just loved that whole movie series. The premise sounds really interesting too. The story is set in the 80s, and it's about all of the it girls at Shadyside High. They're all competing to be the next prom queen. An unusual nominee emerges in the race for prom queen, and some of the other candidates start to disappear. I kind of wonder what the circumstances are with the unusual nominee. I'm thinking, is it someone that's really kind of strange? Is it supposed to be maybe some version of Carrie White, where, she's a nominee, but it's as a joke, and she realizes that, and maybe that's why she starts killing people. Maybe it's a witch or something. I don't know why a witch wants to be prom queen that badly, but I'm excited for this. I think it'd be really cool, and I'm wondering, if it's going to be a whodunit slasher. It's kind of the vibe I'm getting. I'm thinking maybe the unusual candidate won't be the killer. That'll be one of the twists, is that it's someone that likes her, that wants her to be the queen, or maybe it'll have nothing to do with this person and that'll just be a red herring. But either way, I'm really excited for this one, again, because I just love Fear Street, the book series, the movie series, and I'm just really excited that we're getting another Fear Street movie. Now to mention another film that was on my list last year that was not released but is set to release this year, and that is Dust Bunny. Dust Bunny is about an 8-year-old girl who asks her neighbor to help her murder the monster under her bed because she believes the monster ate her family. This is obviously going to be a Monsters Incorporated crossover. I will be very disappointed if it is not, if there is not at least one green monster with one eye. If there is not at least one Cyclops monster with one eye in this movie, that is a missed opportunity. This film is going to be directed by Brian Fuller, who did the Hannibal series, and it is going to be starring Mads Mikkelsen, who played Hannibal, so it's kind of like a little mini Hannibal reunion as well. Really excited for this one because I like the premise. I think that it sounds almost cute. Lots of potential for ominous things to happen. And last on my list of most anticipated horror films for 2025 is The Backrooms. The Backrooms is going to be an adaptation. It originally started as a series of YouTube videos that went viral, and then it got turned into a video game series. Although it's several series and spin-offs. It's lots of independent companies kind of made their own version of The Backrooms. I don't know what the copyright deal is on that, who's getting royalties and what, but I myself have played several of those games. They're really interesting because it's first person, you're in a labyrinth, and you turn the corner and everything looks the same, so it's very easy to get lost. And sometimes you just die without knowing why you died. You just went down the wrong hallway, and then sometimes there's a monster you have to run from, and sometimes you don't see the full monster, you just see black tentacles, something out of Stranger Things. But because it's been adapted by different game makers that have their own interpretation of what's happening, it's kind of almost a folklore thing at this point, like Slender Man, because Slender Man has also had lots of fan fiction written about him, and there's been lots of little small independent games about him. So the story changes based on what content you're watching. This is going to be an A24 film, and I'm excited about that because I feel like that is the right company to be involved in this project. I feel like this is going to be all about like the subtle creeping horror and like drawing that out as long as possible. I don't think this is going to be very jump scares heavy. I think it's going to be all about like the tension, and I'm really looking forward to this and seeing how they adapt this game. There's a few horror shows that I'm really looking forward to this year as well, starting with It, Welcome to Derry. So this is going to be taking place before the events of It Chapter 1. It looks like the first season is going to be all of the things that happened that summer before the first movie takes place. I think that it's really interesting how they already have 3 seasons mapped out. It's planned to be only a 3-season show. It's going to revolve around some of the events that Mike found in his research during the time, I'm guessing, whenever they all became adults and left, and he was researching to find out like more information about, you know, the monster and its victims and things like that. And they're going to be going back in time more with each season. So the first season is going to take place in 1962. The second season is 1935. And then the last season they had planned is going to be 1908. So that's really interesting. It kind of reminds me a little bit of Fear Street, which was also planned to be a trilogy. Remember my last video, I talked about horror trilogies being a trend. And also I think that it's interesting that it's moving backwards in time, which is also what the Fear Street trilogy did. So that's just an interesting parallel there. But I hope that it's as good as the Fear Street trilogy, because I really enjoyed that. And, you know, I also really liked the It movies. I didn't think that they were that scary, but I really enjoyed the chemistry between the characters and the story. So I'm really hoping that the miniseries is just as good. Next up is Alien Earth. This is a prequel that takes place 2 years before the first Alien. The synopsis reads, when a mysterious space vessel crash lands on Earth, a young woman and a ragtag group of soldiers make a discovery that puts them face to face with the planet's greatest threat. I'm excited to see this series continuing. I really loved Alien Romulus last year. I thought that it was one of the best installments in the series. My personal fan theory is that this series is going to show us how Wayland Industries found the first xenomorph and, you know, why they decided to start doing research on the xenomorphs and what led to their kind of obsession, which is ultimately what led to the first Alien film. That's my theory. I have absolutely no proof at all. But, you know, the synopsis does kind of make it sound like that. Like, this is going to be our first contact with the xenomorph. Probably thanks to David. So, thank you, David. Next up on my list, and this is probably my most anticipated for horror shows coming out this year, Season 7 of Black Mirror. For those of you that don't know, Black Mirror is a horror anthology series. It's a lot like The Twilight Zone. It often takes sci-fi concepts that are like 5 minutes in the future, you know, things that either exist in some form now or that will conceivably exist sometime very soon. And it, you know, creates sort of a horror story surrounding that technology and showing the dark side of, you know, how humans will abuse that technology in a very terrible way because we are awful. Next up is Season 2 of Wednesday. Yes, I know Wednesday is like horror light, but, you know, it's still technically horror. It's got monsters and murder and things in it. I loved first season. I just watched it last week, actually. It's basically just Wednesday Addams she goes to an academy called Nevermore, and while she's there, she tries to make friends. No, wait. She doesn't try to make friends. It's the opposite. She doesn't want to make friends. Maybe that's what's so fun about it, is that it's like the opposite of what you would expect with that sort of dark academia. You know, usually it's about wanting to make friends and fit in, and she's not having any of that. But, you know, for some reason she's irresistible and everybody wants to, you know, befriend her or date her. And she basically, whenever students start disappearing and getting killed, she, you know, begins to investigate, and she discovers that there is a monster that is killing students on campus. First season was super fun. It was very satisfying. The mystery is, you know, solved, but they did leave a little bit open for Season 2, so really looking forward to this to see how the story develops. And, you know, the characters were just so fun, so I'm really looking forward to getting to see Season 2. So that is it. That is my list for most anticipated horror films of 2025, and a few of my most anticipated horror shows as well. Leave a comment below and let me know what you're looking forward to this year. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and be sure to subscribe. On this channel, I post reviews, writing advice, horror commentary, and vlogs. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you later.